Camera pans across a shimmering ballroom, crystal chandeliers dripping in gold light, laughter echoing off marble walls, champagne glasses clinking like delicate wind chimes. The atmosphere is electric. This is no ordinary birthday party. This is the celebration of a man who has everything. Or so it seems. In the center of it all stands Ethan Cole, effortlessly handsome in a tailored black tuxedo, his salt and pepper hair swept back, confidence radiating from his calm smile. Billionaire. Philanthropist. Visionary. Tonight, the world is raising a glass to him. At his side is Vanessa, his wife of 5 years. A vision in red satin, dripping with diamonds. Elegant. Poised. A woman who knows the cameras are always watching. Her fingers are laced perfectly with his. Her smile. Dazzling. But only skin deep. A hush settles over the crowd as Ethan steps up to the microphone. He raises his glass. To love, to loyalty, and to building a life worth more than any fortune. Polite applause follows. Vanessa leans in and kisses his cheek. Flashbulbs pop. Picture perfect. Minutes later, Ethan slips out the side doors into the cool night air, his breath visible in the cold. The laughter inside fades behind him. And then, he freezes. Across the garden, beneath a string of golden lights, he sees Vanessa. Not alone. She's leaning into a tall, young man. Whispering. Laughing. And then, she kisses him. Full. Passionate. Familiar. The glass in Ethan's hand trembles. His chest tightens. For a moment, the world goes silent. Cue slow motion. Eyes widen. Time stops. The woman he loved just shattered the illusion. Fade to black. That night, everything I thought was real, shattered. But life had better plans. Before the kiss. Before the betrayal. Before the silence and the spinning room, there was a love story. Or at least, something that looked like one from the outside. Ethan Cole met Vanessa Wexler at a charity gala in Manhattan 6 years ago. She was radiant, an Ivy League graduate from an old money family with a last name that graced the wings of art museums and hospital buildings. She wore confidence like perfume and charm like armor. To the world, she was the definition of class. To Ethan, she was a challenge. Someone who could dance between senators and CEOs without breaking a sweat. Someone who could match his ambition stride for stride. At least, that's what he thought. They married in Lake Como the following year, press swarming the gates, fashion blogs devouring every detail. People said it was a modern fairy tale, the self-made billionaire and the society queen. And maybe, for a brief moment, Ethan believed that too. But cracks began to show. Vanessa had a way of whispering critiques like compliments. That speech was sweet, she'd say, smiling. But maybe next time leave out the part about growing up in a 2-bedroom apartment. It's heavy. She always had notes. On his posture. His word choice. His company. The woman who once clapped at his speeches now rolled her eyes at his causes. She dismissed his passion projects, community development, mentorship programs, rebuilding abandoned neighborhoods. You're not a social worker, Ethan, she scoffed once. You're a mogul. Act like one. To her, philanthropy was a photo op, not a purpose. The more Ethan tried to ground himself in meaning, the more Vanessa floated into her curated world of curated people. Her circle was a rotating cast of influencers, diplomats, and ultra-wealthy friends who knew each other by their yachts and private jets. He'd sit through dinners where no one asked about dreams, just deals. Still, he stayed. He told himself this was the cost of maintaining something beautiful. Of honoring vows. Of building an empire together. But beneath Vanessa's diamond smile was something colder. When Ethan spoke about building wellness centers in inner cities, she laughed. Isn't that what non-profits are for? You're not a savior, Ethan. You're a brand. He started noticing her absence, physically, emotionally, spiritually. She was always networking, always busy. Her phone buzzed with names he didn't recognize. She started traveling solo more often. Paris. Dubai. Cape Town. Girl trips, she said. Business mixers. Always just out of reach. And still, he stayed. Because Ethan wasn't the yelling type. He wasn't impulsive. He was methodical. Measured. Loyal. Maybe too loyal. But even loyalty has a limit. On the morning of his 40th birthday, as staff decorated the estate and chefs prepared a 5-course tasting menu, Ethan overheard something that turned his stomach cold. Vanessa was on a call, pacing the patio, unaware he was on the other side of the glass door. She laughed lightly, then said, "He's rich, not irresistible." 5 words. That was all it took. 5 words sharper than knives. Ethan stood frozen. He didn't storm in. He didn't confront her. He just turned and walked away, his heart beating slower than normal, like it was tired of pretending. And that night, when he stepped outside for a breath of air, hoping the crisp breeze might numb the ache in his chest, he saw what those 5 words really meant. Vanessa, glamorous, perfect Vanessa, kissing another man. A young, smug guest who looked like he belonged on a magazine cover more than at a billionaire's birthday party. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't confused. She was exactly who she'd always been underneath the polish. Someone who saw Ethan not as a partner, but as a paycheck. Her kiss wasn't a slip. It wasn't a mistake. It was the truth leaking out. And the illusion, once so dazzling, crumbled like cheap glass in the hands of a man who finally saw it for what it was. The morning after the party, Ethan didn't storm into the bedroom. He didn't scream or throw accusations. He simply walked in, still dressed in the same black tuxedo, the bow tie now undone, his expression unreadable. Vanessa was sipping coffee at the breakfast table, scrolling through last night's tagged photos on her phone. Her legs were crossed casually, her robe draped loosely over her shoulders. She looked up when she noticed him standing in the doorway. "You didn't come to bed," she said, not with concern, but with an edge of irritation. "I saw you," Ethan said quietly. "With him. By the garden." A pause. Vanessa blinked. Her lips twitched, not with guilt, but amusement. "Oh my God, are we really doing this?" She laughed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "It was just a kiss, Ethan. You're being dramatic." He didn't flinch. "I'm not upset you kissed someone else," he said, his voice low, almost clinical. "I'm upset I finally saw you without the performance." Vanessa set down her cup. "Excuse me." "You kissed him," Ethan continued, walking slowly into the room. "But I saw something else. I saw who you really are. And suddenly, everything makes sense." She rolled her eyes and stood up. "Don't act like you're some perfect husband. You're always working. Always off in your little charity fantasy, trying to save the world one ghetto at a time." There it was, the venom behind the pearls. "I built this life," he said firmly. "And I invited you to build it with me. But you were never building anything. You were posing." Silence. Later that afternoon, Ethan's legal team delivered the papers. Clean. Decisive. No room for negotiation. Vanessa was stunned. She expected groveling. A fight. A dramatic scene. She never imagined he'd walk away this easily. That night, the story exploded online. Billionaire power couple splits overnight. Ethan Cole's wife caught in scandalous affair at birthday gala. Vanessa Wexler, fashion icon or faithless socialite. Vanessa tried to control the narrative. She called up her PR team and went on the offensive. In interviews, she painted a different picture. He was emotionally distant, always working. "I felt invisible. We hadn't been happy for a while. He used work to avoid dealing with our marriage." Her carefully constructed sob story was subtle, but venomous. She never mentioned the kiss. Never mentioned the younger man. But she seeded doubt. Talk show hosts debated. Is Ethan Cole the victim, or just another emotionally unavailable billionaire? Ethan didn't respond. Not in public. Not in interviews. Not on social media. Instead, he vanished from the spotlight. Paparazzi swarmed his penthouse for days, desperate for a statement. But blinds stayed closed. Security kept cameras at bay. To the world, it looked like Ethan had been humiliated and retreated in shame. But behind those locked gates, something else was happening. He wasn't licking wounds. He wasn't hiding in heartbreak. He was planning. Sorting. Reorganizing his life piece by piece, stripping away the layers of performance, the dead weight of superficial relationships, and the lie he had called marriage. He started showing up again. Quietly. Purposefully. In the places that mattered. Not on red carpets. Not at luxury expos. But in community centers. In startup forums. In youth mentorship programs. He was reclaiming his time. Rebuilding his peace. And for the first time in years, Ethan Cole wasn't being watched. He was watching. Listening. Learning. And Vanessa. She was still chasing the spotlight, only this time, without the glow of his last name. In the weeks following the divorce, Ethan did what he always did when life cracked open. He went back to work. But this time, it wasn't the boardrooms or press conferences that called to him. It was the forgotten neighborhoods. The dusty corners of the city where potential bloomed without sunlight. Where talent lived in silence because no one was funding their voices. These were the places Ethan felt most human, far from champagne flutes and empty toasts. His foundation, Cole Futures, had long supported community development, but now he wasn't just signing checks. He was walking into the rooms himself. Sitting at folding tables. Listening to the people. One afternoon, he visited a modest startup incubator tucked into the heart of Atlanta, a converted warehouse with exposed brick, mismatched chairs, and walls plastered with sticky notes and ambition. There were no suits. No egos. Just energy. That's where he saw her. Amora Johnson. She stood at the front of the room, presenting a pitch, not for a tech app or a subscription service, but for something far more intimate. A wellness brand rooted in ancestral healing, spiritual self-care, and reclaiming generational strength. This isn't about profit, she said. It's about repair. For people who've been taught to survive, not to thrive. Ethan sat in the back, arms folded. Something about her voice settled him. It wasn't loud, but it was grounded. She didn't speak to impress, she spoke to awaken. After her presentation, he approached her quietly. "You've built something powerful," he said. Amora smiled but didn't fawn. "Thank you. What do you do?" Ethan paused. He hadn't been asked that question without fanfare in years. "I fund projects like yours," he replied. "Cool," she nodded, not missing a beat. "But what do you do, for real?" He chuckled softly. "I guess I'm still figuring that out." It wasn't until one of the organizers whispered his name that her eyes flickered in recognition. "Wait, you're Ethan Cole." He nodded. She blinked once, then shrugged. "Titles don't impress me. Purpose does." That line landed like a bell in his chest. They started talking after that. Slowly. Casually. No flirtation, no expectations. Just real conversation. Ethan came back to the incubator week after week, sometimes just to listen to pitches, other times to talk with Amora about business models, community wellness, or the books they were reading. She asked questions no one else asked him. Questions about legacy, intention, and healing. "You've helped a lot of people," she said one evening. "But have you ever let anyone help you?" That one stayed with him. She was different from Vanessa in every way. Vanessa had once scoffed at his outreach programs, calling them PR charity. Amora, on the other hand, ran pop-up therapy sessions in neighborhoods most influencers wouldn't step into. Where Vanessa had demanded perfection, Amora embraced mess. Where Vanessa performed grace, Amora lived truth. And Ethan, for the first time in a long time, didn't feel like a product. He felt seen. One Saturday, Amora invited him to a neighborhood cookout. Nothing fancy, just grills, music, folding chairs, and kids running around barefoot. Ethan hesitated at first. "I'm not exactly low-key." "Then come as yourself," she replied. "Not as a brand." So he did. He showed up in jeans and a hoodie. No entourage. No security detail. Just Ethan. At the cookout, nobody treated him like a billionaire. They handed him a paper plate loaded with ribs and cornbread and asked if he could DJ for a bit. Someone tossed him a football. A kid tried to sell him a mixtape. It was chaotic. Unfiltered. Alive. And Ethan laughed. Really laughed. His shoulders loosened. His phone stayed in his pocket. As the sun dipped low and the music thumped low in the distance, he stood beside Amora, watching the crowd, and said quietly, "I haven't felt like this in years." She looked at him, her eyes kind but unblinking. "Maybe this is who you were always supposed to be," she said. "Before all the noise." And in that moment, under string lights and the scent of charcoal smoke, Ethan Cole, a man once shattered by betrayal, felt something rare and unfamiliar blooming in his chest again. Hope. Love didn't crash into Ethan like a thunderstorm this time. It unfolded slowly, quietly, like the rising sun. With Amora, there were no grand declarations, no curated Instagram moments, no cameras. Just small, steady acts of care. A thoughtful text. A shared playlist. A late-night walk after community meetings, where their conversations drifted from strategy to childhood memories. From heartbreak to hope. Ethan had spent most of his life speaking in numbers, contracts, and forecasts. He'd built empires with words carefully chosen and feelings carefully buried. But Amora, she invited more. She asked how he felt about things. About losing his parents young. About growing up working class. About what it meant to have power, and how lonely it could be. And when he didn't have the words, she waited. She wasn't in a rush to fix him. She simply held space, and in that space, he grew. For her part, Amora had built walls, too. As a black woman leading a wellness brand in a world that barely tolerated her truth, she was used to doing everything herself. She had been strong for so long, it scared her to even imagine leaning on someone else. But Ethan didn't try to overpower her independence. He respected it. He listened more than he spoke. He supported her ideas without needing credit. And slowly, Amora realized that letting someone in wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. What began as friendship evolved into something deeper. Intentional. Rooted. They challenged each other. He taught her patience with systems. She taught him trust in intuition. He helped scale her business without compromising her soul. She helped him rediscover his own. Then one night, everything changed. They were attending a small charity gala in Atlanta, an event for local youth arts programs. Amora wore a simple, elegant dress with Ankara accents. Ethan wore no tie, just a relaxed black suit. They weren't on a red carpet. But someone snapped a photo anyway. The image showed them laughing, eyes locked, hands intertwined, warmth radiating like light itself. By morning, it was everywhere. Is this Ethan Cole's new queen? Billionaire ditches his white ex for a black goddess. Vanessa who? Meet Amora Johnson. The internet erupted. Some praised the couple as a vision of purpose and power. Others sneered, projecting stereotypes and insecurities. But amidst the noise, something undeniable rang true. Ethan looked different. Happier. Lighter. Realer. Vanessa saw the photo while scrolling in bed, half asleep, the glow of her phone illuminating her face. She scoffed aloud, tossed the phone aside. "Please," she muttered. "She's not even." But she stopped mid-sentence when a notification popped up, a trending article titled, "How Amora Johnson is Teaching the Ultra-Rich About Healing, Humility, and Humanity." She clicked it. There was Amora, featured in Vogue Business, Forbes Impact, Essence. Brilliant. Grounded. Articulate. She wasn't some arm candy. She was building her own table and inviting others to eat. Vanessa stared at the screen for a long time. And for the first time since the divorce, she felt something far worse than jealousy. Regret. Meanwhile, Ethan was planning something far from the public eye. One afternoon, he took Amora to a quiet botanical garden just outside the city, a place she'd mentioned loving as a child. They walked beneath an arch of weeping willows, barefoot in the grass, hands brushing gently. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Ethan stopped and turned to her. "I thought I lost everything when I left that life behind," he said. "But the truth is, I only lost what I didn't need, to find everything I do." Then, from his jacket, he pulled out a small, hand-carved box. Inside, a ring, simple, elegant, adorned with an ethically sourced emerald. No camera crews. No champagne. Just silence. And Amora's eyes, wide with emotion. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. Their wedding wasn't hosted in a mansion or a cathedral. It took place in a sunlit backyard in Georgia, beneath a canopy of trees draped in white fabric and laughter. There were no billionaire guests. No headlines. Just neighbors, chosen family, homemade food, and a jazz band playing Nina Simone covers. Amora wore a dress she designed herself. Ethan cried before she even walked down the aisle. They wrote their own vows. He promised presents. She promised peace. And when they kissed, it wasn't for an audience. It was for each other. Because sometimes, the grandest love stories begin after the cameras stop rolling. At first, Vanessa thought the silence would break. After all, Ethan had always come back before. Always forgiven. Always played the gentleman, even when she pushed him to the edge. But weeks turned into months. Then a year. And the silence remained, sharp, deliberate, and absolute. The settlement had been modest. Painfully so. The ironclad prenup Vanessa once dismissed as a formality came back to haunt her. She had waived claims to spousal support and shares in coal enterprises, all because she was too proud to negotiate. Back then, she had believed in her own myth. She was Vanessa Wexler, the face of 2 fragrance brands. The woman whose smile could launch 1,000 likes. But time is cruel in the influencer world. Endorsement deals dried up. Modeling contracts vanished as younger, newer faces flooded the market. Her social media engagement dropped. Her agent stopped returning calls. She moved out of her penthouse and into a modern but modest condo. No doorman. No art walls. No branded welcome baskets. Still, she told herself it was temporary. That something bigger was coming. Then one evening, half asleep on the couch with a glass of wine, she opened Instagram. There it was. A viral clip from a women's leadership forum in D.C. The camera panned to a tall, elegant black woman on stage. Confident, radiant, every word thoughtful and firm. The host's voice boomed over the applause. Please welcome Amora Johnson, entrepreneur, activist, and the wife of philanthropist Ethan Cole. Vanessa stared at the screen. Her mouth twitched. She turned the volume up. Amora spoke about sustainable healing, ancestral resilience, and transforming wealth into community power. Every sentence struck like a match against flint. She wasn't just poised, she was purposeful. She wasn't Ethan's accessory, she was his partner. The audience gave her a standing ovation. And there, alone in her dim living room, Vanessa felt something she hadn't in years. Invisible. She tried to scoff, to shrug it off with the old confidence, but it wouldn't come. Instead, she opened her phone and scrolled through old photos, her and Ethan at galas, on yachts, in hotel lobbies. Her hand always gripping his arm. Her eyes always slightly turned toward the camera. She never realized how cold she looked until now. On impulse, she opened their old text thread and typed. Just wanted to say, I miss us sometimes. She stared at the message. Then hit send. The screen stayed still. No response. No typing bubbles. Days passed. Then a week. She told herself he'd respond eventually. But he didn't. Instead, Amora saw the message first, her phone lighting up as they prepared dinner together in their quiet, plant-filled home. She read it once, then looked at Ethan. You don't need to say anything, she said gently. She's not the enemy. She's the lesson. Ethan nodded, then slid his phone across the counter, untouched. They went back to chopping vegetables. Across the city, Vanessa spiraled. She checked the message again. Still unread. She posted a throwback photo of her and Ethan at Cannes, hoping for attention. The comments were brutal. He upgraded. Look at her trying to stay relevant. That man glowed up. Her fingers trembled. She turned off her phone. It hit her all at once, the parties, the press, the pretense, it had all been noise. And when the noise stopped, she realized there was no music beneath it. Vanessa hadn't just lost a husband. She had lost the only person who ever loved her for something beyond her reflection. She had traded real for rich, and now she had neither. And somewhere, far away from the clinking glasses and velvet ropes, Ethan Cole was living a life not of luxury, but of truth. Vanessa sat at her window, looking out at a city that once begged for her attention. Now it passed her by. And for the first time, she didn't feel wronged. She felt replaced. Not by someone younger. Or prettier. But by someone wiser. And deep down, she knew. That was the real loss. The room was bathed in gold. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above lush floral centerpieces. The tables bore names like rebirth, legacy, and purpose. Jazz floated through the air, warm and alive. It was the kind of event that demanded presence, where power met purpose, and every guest understood why they were there. The Cole Foundation's Future Forward Gala had become the most anticipated philanthropic event of the year. But this wasn't the old kind of wealth-flaunting gala. This was different. No rented celebrities. No empty speeches. No charity auctions for overpriced artwork. This gala raised funds for women-led startups, for mental health clinics in underfunded neighborhoods, for tech incubators in cities no one used to care about. At the center of it all stood Ethan and Amora Cole. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, his usual. She wore a flowing black and gold gown, her locks pinned up with ancestral beads tucked behind one ear. They weren't flashy, but together they radiated gravity. Everywhere they moved, people leaned in. Young entrepreneurs. Global donors. Community leaders. They weren't just admired. They were respected. But not everyone in the room was on the guest list. In the back, slipping past the final layer of security with the practiced confidence of someone who once belonged, stood Vanessa Wexler. She wore a sleek beige dress, understated by her old standards, but still elegant. A designer clutch tucked under her arm. Chin high. Shoulders firm. She told herself she wasn't here to make a scene. She was just curious. She hadn't spoken to Ethan in over a year. The last text she'd sent still sat unanswered. The silence had never broken. As she made her way through the crowd, she caught glimpses of her old world, but none of it welcomed her anymore. Conversations paused as she passed. No one rushed over. No photographers clicked. Then, the final sting. A young reporter, not even 25, wearing a press badge and holding a tray of empty champagne flutes, turned to her and asked with a smile, "Hi, can you help refresh table 6? We're short on staff." Vanessa blinked, stunned. I'm not with catering," she muttered. The girl apologized quickly and rushed off, cheeks flushed. But the damage had already been done. Vanessa turned slowly, just in time to see Ethan and Amora stepping onto the stage together. Hand in hand. The applause thundered. Ethan spoke briefly, graciously. Amora followed, delivering a speech about legacy that moved half the room to tears. "We are not here to rescue communities," she said. "We are here to invest in them. To believe in people long before the world tells them they're worth believing in." Vanessa stood in the back, her eyes fixed on Amora. There was no jealousy this time. Just recognition. Amora wasn't just beautiful. She was whole. A moment later, the crowd parted, and Amora saw her. For a second, Vanessa braced for judgment. Pity. A power play. Instead, Amora walked toward her with grace. Calm. No entourage. She stopped just a few feet away. "You didn't have to sneak in," she said softly. Vanessa looked down, embarrassed. I wasn't sure if I was welcome." Amora smiled, not smugly, but sincerely. "There's a panel next month. Women talking about rebuilding after failure. You'd have something valuable to share." Vanessa blinked. "Are you serious?" "I am." She didn't say it as a jab. Or a trap. It was a real offer. An open door. But Vanessa, proud and fragile all at once, hesitated. Her throat tightened. "I'm not ready," she whispered, voice cracking. Amora nodded. "That's okay. The invitation stands." Then she turned and walked back toward Ethan, who reached for her hand as if they'd never been apart. Together, they moved through the crowd, their bodies in rhythm, their presence magnetic. And Vanessa stood still. Watching. Smiling. But not for her. She wiped a tear quickly, hoping no one noticed. The irony of it all, how she had once owned these rooms, only to now float at their edges, was almost poetic. But somewhere deep inside, past the bruised ego and hollow fame, something shifted. Not bitterness. Not rage. Just silence. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of healing. Soft piano music begins, gentle, reflective, the kind that wraps around you like a memory. The screen fades in from black. A slow-motion shot of sunrise peeking over community center rooftop. Kids are filing into a brightly colored room, laughter echoing as volunteers hand out notebooks, crayons, and fruit juice boxes. The walls are covered in murals painted by local artists, images of joy, strength, and resilience. In the center of the room stands Amora Cole, leading a workshop circle. She's calm, confident, surrounded by young girls scribbling dreams onto vision boards. Her voice is warm, her energy magnetic. She's not just teaching, she's empowering. At the back of the room, wearing jeans and a worn grey t-shirt, is Ethan Cole, serving lunch, handing out plates with a quiet smile, his sleeves rolled up, hands dusted in flour. No cameras. No fanfare. Just purpose. As the scene plays out, Ethan's voice begins to narrate, smooth and thoughtful. I used to think wealth was measured in commas and columns. Or in headlines and houses and the weight of a last name. I had everything, money, status, power. But I had no peace. Cut to images of his past life. Glittering galas, stiff photo ops, cold champagne in his hand, Vanessa's unreadable smile at his side. And when it all crumbled, I thought I'd lost everything. But what I really lost was the illusion. The music swells gently. Cut back to the community center. A little boy tugs on Ethan's shirt. Hey, are you rich? Ethan kneels beside him, smiling, not with arrogance, but with a softness that only comes from having been through the fire and survived. Richer than I've ever been, he says. The boy grins and runs off. Ethan watches him go, then looks over at Amora, laughing, glowing, completely in her element. He walks toward her, plate in hand. She reaches for it, their hands brushing. They exchange a knowing look, no words needed. Freeze frame. Their hands intertwined. Her eyes shining. His expression full of quiet gratitude. The screen begins to fade. On-screen text. Sometimes heartbreak is the door, but healing is the key. Fade to black. Final chord of the piano echoes, then silence.